and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer, healthier, and stronger for everyone. I'm Harvey Epstein, and I'm running for City Council to make downtown Manhattan safer for everyone. My Safe City 360 plan is a 7-point blueprint to create security and care in every corner of New York City. Here's how we'll do it. 1, we'll transform our streets to protect pedestrians and cyclists. We'll redesign high-risk intersections and create pedestrian-only zones, making our streets safer for everyone. 2, we'll secure our subways with bold, caring solutions. We'll install protective barriers on platforms and integrate mental health teams for real-time crisis support. 3, we will build trust with data-driven community policing by expanding foot patrols and using information to target high-risk areas while strengthening relationships between police and communities. 4, we'll empower youth to prevent crime at its roots. We'll invest in after-school and evening programs, job training, and counseling while reforming policies that harm communities of color. 5, we'll stand firm against hate crimes. We'll enforce hate crime laws and invest in programs for pro-inclusivity and understanding. 6, we'll stop random violence at real community care. We'll expand mobile mental health teams to provide real-time care and prevent violence from escalating. 7, we'll revolutionize mental health response. We'll double supportive housing units to integrate mental health professionals into emergency response systems for comprehensive care. With Safe Cities 360, we're not just imagining safer city, we're building it. Together we create a New York that's safer.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you all for coming. I know it's a busy night. Here we are at the end of October. The world's a troubling place many times. We see what's happening in our city, state, and country. The federal government shut down. We see ICE raids in Chinatown yesterday. And then we have to think about what the future has to be. And you're here to talk about the future of New York and District 2. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I want to thank Middle Church. I know people have been in this, just reopened about 6 months ago. I want to thank Middle Church for letting us be here. It's really important that we support, and that people remember 5 years ago there was a fire here and we lost this historic building, and to come back to rebuild and hopefully find something else on the lot here that really builds this community back up is really critical. So here in New York, we know we're facing a housing crisis. We know we have public safety and mental health issues we're dealing with every single day. Environmental issues, climate change affects us all the time. We see it with a hot summer and a cool spring and a warm fall. We see what that means to what happens here, East Side, coastal resiliency. The future in New York really matters. So this town hall is really going to explore a lot of those issues to give us information to be able to, that I can represent this community well and to be able to give back and to work on things for the next 8 years in the City Council to advance our agenda, to build the affordable housing we need, to deal with public safety, to have real plans, to deal with the crisis we face, and to make sure New York's a more resilient and climate justice place. That's what this is about. This is the beginning of a conversation. Please reach out to myself, my team. I want to thank really the people here, Monica for all the work she did to get this stuff together, Julia, her work, and Chanel, the really strong people who really make this happen. And we're lucky to have some colleagues in government who are here, who are going to come up and welcome you all. We're going to bring up first, since we're going north or we're going west? We're going north, okay. We're going north to a friend and a colleague and a council member who overlaps with my district as in my assembly district, as a friend who's really fought on the city level, whether he was the chair of corrections, to help close Rikers, focusing on environmental justice and caring about affordable housing, council member Keith Powers.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone. First of all, let's give it up for our assembly member, soon to be council member. And look, I am very lucky. Harvey is my assembly member, Epstein is my assembly member. And just like many of you, what comes with that is not only a great partner for me as a council member, we have to fight for more affordable housing and better housing in our districts, or whenever there is an issue in the community, but also just I know in Albany that when he is up there, he is going to be fighting for more affordable housing, fighting to make sure that he's protecting tenants, fighting for good environmental standards here in the city, and much more. And in the moment that we are in right now, when we are literally seeing on Canal Street ICE walking down and attacking New Yorkers, we are living under siege from the Trump administration, our state legislatures and our city government is just so much more important to defending and protecting the rights of New Yorkers. And it's particularly at the state legislative level, his work with colleagues to look for ways to protect New Yorkers against the harm that could be done of the Trump administration cannot be understated. I am proud to support and endorse him. He is going to be our next city council member for District 2. So if you are like me, I got to get off in a second, but if you are like me, while you're sad to lose an assembly member, we know in the city council he's going to do a great job. Is that right? All right, so let's hear it for our next city council member one more time, Harvey Epstein. Thank you for everything he's doing.
Thank you, Councilman Powers. And just to FYI, folks know that while he's a current council member, he's also a candidate for the assembly, so people should be talking to Keith Powers as well. Now I want to bring up another council member. I'm going west a little, so we're surrounding District 2 with a good friend and colleague, council member Eric Botcher, who's really been on the forefront of dealing with mental health issues, really focusing on those issues, trying to figure out the solutions to these problems, whether it's doing more around Be Heard, talking about our clubhouses, focusing on how we can make our city safer for all of us. Good friend Eric Botcher.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Botcher, the council member for Council District 3, West Village, Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, Times Square. And I really want to thank my friend and colleague, Harvey Epstein, for inviting me to be part of today. Those of you in City Council District 2, you are in for a treat with Assemblymember Harvey Epstein. And I know that because he and I currently overlap by 1 block with his assembly, and that block is so clean, so well taken care of. In all seriousness, I think today's town hall about mental health is a real signal of Assemblymember Epstein's dedication to this, to our city and to our families, because everyone in New York City is being touched by this issue. We all have in our own lives people close to us or ourselves who are touched by this. I take antidepressants every day. I'm very open about that because we have to reduce the stigma around mental health. We have to reduce... Oh, do you know why they did that? Do you know why they did that? Because I went over my time. You have a good staff, Harvey. Well, look, vote for Harvey Epstein, November 4th, and let's go out and let's address the mental health crisis because we are so much better than this as a city. Am I right? Yes. Thanks so much, everybody.
And I want to thank Councilmember Botcher. You'll see a lot from him because he's also announced he's running for Congress, and so you'll be seeing his name out there for a while. Now I want to bring up our first panel, Aitza, Jody, Iris. Where's Jody? I see Aitza here. There's Jody. Where's Iris? Where is she? Iris Bailey, I don't see her. Where is she? Someone should call her. Okay, good. We'll start with the two of you until we get there. Thank you. So, Aitza, can we start with you? Can we talk about, so public housing is on the brink. We see in New York City, in this district, one out of 7 New Yorkers living in public housing. The conditions continue to deteriorate. federal disinvestment for public housing. What do we need to be doing in this city going forward to advance the needs of public housing? And sorry, I didn't say this, but Aisha Torres is a president of a tenant association called Smith Houses, also the president of the Lower Manhattan president and part of the Manhattan South developments, as well as a member of what the citywide called CCOP. So she's been a real leader on these issues, and Aisha, thank you for being here, and that's your question.
So, good evening, everyone. I know everybody saw in the news what happened to Mitchell Houses, right? And so part of what's been going on is a systematic way of NYCHA not doing maintenance. Part of it has been to push people to do the Preservation Trust, to do RAD, but in the interim, people can seriously get hurt, right? It's hard for the resident leaders sometimes to be able to, and I had a conversation with one of my resident leaders who's like a big fighter. She's always fighting with me. And they feel like there's nothing else that they can do, right? And one of the things I think that we need to do is, number one, we need to advocate for our residents to register to vote. Make our elected officials accountable to respond to the needs that we live in. And ironically enough, if all the resident leaders or all the residents in public housing in NYCHA voted, we can actually elect a mayor and a couple of other people. And we don't recognize our political power, right, that needs to happen for us to improve our quality of life. NYCHA right now is floating. HUD is closed. So they're supposed to take their directive as something, if there's a question beyond them, to go to HUD, but HUD is closed. But actually, HUD has for a long time let NYCHA monitor itself. And that's part of the problem, that we, the residents, are the ones that need to do the monitoring. We're the ones that need to say, this is wrong. Even though they think, one of the people who makes 6 figures in NYCHA and publicly said, she was asked, what's your biggest problem? And she said, oh, the residents, because they're not sophisticated enough to understand. Right? So, to me, the new CEO that stands there and the one before, the chairman, they thought she was a great person, so you must think like her. And so those are the kind of things that we are facing. And we need to stand up. We need to register. We need to come out and vote. We need to vote for new people. And we need to have hope. And right now, I think that a lot of what's going on in NYCHA is we have no hope. We don't see the rainbow at the end of what's going on in our developments. And that is very hard sometimes to face and let people know. But I will tell you that one thing about Section 9, right, which is what we live in NYCHA, is we have rights. We have rights to defend ourselves, and as resident leaders to defend our residents, and sometimes even our staff. And so we need to stay in Section 9, because the moment we leave, we have nothing. Then there is no rainbow. And you can't basically go back when those are signed, even though it is a process. If you're in the process, you can say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. No, stop it. But the reality of it is that while we're in Section 9, we have the ability to fight. We have the ability to advocate. We have so many rights that we don't even know about. And so for those who are here who live in public housing and wouldn't know, you go into HUD and you look at regulations 964, and that's where all our rights are. as residents, as leaders, as resident councils. And we need to educate ourselves. And the resident leaders need to educate their residents. And I know that a lot of times the residents think we don't know what we're talking about, right? Because I think a lot of it has been they've lost the sense of hope. NYCHA has changed so much that there's really not, they've become a landlord, but they haven't, it isn't the NYCHA when I was growing up where there was programs and people actually, at one time actually NYCHA for a lot of people was transitional. They saved money, bought a house, moved on, or moved to co-ops. That alternative is no longer available to any of us. One, because we pay 30% of our gross income. Two, because there's no place to go. We can't afford to live anywhere in New York City. Forget about Manhattan. So
the message I hear you saying is, one, activate public housing residents to register to vote and have their voice. And two, as I hear you saying, let's not talk about rad pack as an option. But how do you think when your residents see deteriorating conditions, which I know you hear about every day, what message do you need to be communicating to residents to kind of say, hey, this is what we need to do? How do we organize to change our living conditions? What are the tools available to them and to you to say, hey, resident management, give us more power, give us, what are the tools available and how do we exercise those tools?
okay. So there is resident management, right? And you can only do that in Section 9. You can't do that in RAD. And you can't do it in the preservation, where you actually begin to manage your own development. You hire your own contractors ultimately. And that's a route to go. And that's why I'm saying we have so much power under Section 9. And so if you do that, you involve the residents. I'll talk about Smith because, we have committees. I have a modernization and construction committee. And so you invite residents to sit down and to talk about, what do you want to do? And become part of the process so that they can see what's going on. A lot of what we have to do is form committees and let residents and give them kind of an ownership, right? So that they begin to see for themselves what the realities are. When, this is going back, when I first became TA president, Harvey was our lead attorney when we took NYCHA to court on the HPD, and everybody thought we were going to lose. And I mean everybody. And we won. We documented. We had a grievance committee that documented what needed to be documented so that when we went before the judge, it just wasn't about, oh, the water's falling down. We had pictures. We had documentation with the help of the legal staff that Harvey headed. And we won the case, right? And so those are the kind of things that we can do to help ourselves. We need to be proactive. And once again, we need to register. We need to motivate. I tell my residents, if you want to know who I'm voting for, you ask me after the meeting. All I want you to do is vote. I don't care if you vote for the bear, right? But vote. Yeah, because when elected officials look at the rosters, what they're looking at is how many people came out of where to vote, not who, they'll know who won and lost, but I'm saying they really don't know, and that's what's important. We need to really mobilize, and we need to, we need to have faith in ourselves and our ability to move what needs to be moved so that we can maintain our homes with dignity.
Thank you. And Jody, let me go to you now because it was a really lead into when we talk about tenant organizing, Cooper Square, affordable housing. Those are real things, that's going on. What do you you guys work in this neighborhood and you're trying to protect rent-stabilized tenants and also create home opportunities for low-income New Yorkers. Tell us what the work is, kind of what the struggles are, and in a forward-facing moment, what are we looking towards to do better in this city, in this neighborhood?
Thanks. What an inspirational person next to me. She does everything that we try to get tenants to do, whether you're, we don't tend to work with public housing residents, but we work with people in private housing, and everything you said resonates. They need to know their rights. You need to organize, you need to document, and get together with the neighbors. It looks like the Lower East Side has become a transitory place. People come and go. People complain about students taking over buildings where families used to live. Has anybody here experienced any kind of negative interaction with their landlord?
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what we help people with at Cooper Square, right? So there's like two sides. There's the Community Land Trust and the MHA that provides affordable housing for people. And then there's a side that I work on where we fight private landlords. What we saw after 2019, when the rent laws changed significantly, and Harvey was a big part of that fight, speculators who had bet on housing, who way overpaid for buildings. I mean, when you buy a building what the rent roll is, right? You know how much money the building's making, but you tell the bank, give me a loan for, $1 zillion, and I'm gonna make it profitable. Well, how are they betting on that? They were gonna get people out. And that's the model that we've seen over and over again in the Lower East Side. Get those long-term tenants out and jack up the rents. And then 2019 came along, the rent laws changed. Wow. Now they're saying, oh, we're underwater, we can't make it. Well, that was a bet you took as a speculator, betting on people's housing, which is a human right? We have to have housing to live. What is a city and state government for if it's not to provide, to ensure that people have a stable home so they can raise their families, go to work, contribute meaningfully to society? So that's what we help people do, fight back in a short way.
So what's on your wish list of for 2026? What things would you look forward to happening? What are the needs of places like Cooper Square? What are you hearing from residents in our neighborhood about what's not happening?
Well, let me just give you an example of one of the private equity firms that we've dealt with that Harvey knows well is Madison Realty Capital. They were building a building at 644 East 14th, and there was a problem with the landlord next door, and the residents all in that building who had lived there for 30 years or so were all displaced. And they went to shelters, many of them. And there's even a few that are still in shelters to this day. This was a few years ago. So now this building, 644 East 14th, the lottery is open, and this is what's considered an affordable rent for a studio, starting off at $17.77 a month, and a 2-bedroom is $43.15. Does that sound like affordable? Right? Yeah, exactly. So what we would like to see are more limited equity co-ops. There's a bill, COPA, community opportunity to purchase, TOPA, tenant opportunity to purchase, which would give tenants the right to buy their building if the landlord decides to sell, and really move toward a social housing model. In Albany, Housing Justice for All has tried to move this social housing development authority. So we're building more democratically controlled, resident-controlled housing so that everybody who raised their hand that had a problem with the landlord isn't going to constantly be facing this conflict between the drive for profit and the need to have a stable home.
So, I do see our housing chair, so maybe we can ask him to jump up and answer some questions too, since he's joining it. So we have Senator Kavanaugh with us, so we're doing housing. So Brian, we have an empty chair up here since one of our presenters didn't come, so maybe we can ask you some questions. So, Senator Kavanaugh, we talk about housing crisis, but we also see the crisis in middle-income housing. The Mitchell-Lamas, we've talked about how do we preserve them. And we did some efforts this year to reduce the shelter rent tax by 50% for existing Mitchell-Lamas. But we've also heard, that while it's been successful, we haven't built a new Mitchell-Lama in 50 years. Like, what can we do on the city and state level, and what have we done about trying to increase more opportunities for middle-income housing, and the goal of, how do we prioritize that in New York?
Yeah, again, thanks. So Brian Kavanaugh, state senator, I represent just about everything south of 14th Street, chair of the Housing Committee. Very proud to work with Harvey Epstein, who is occupying the assembly seat that I once occupied. So that's a nice bit of history, and maybe has other plans soon. But no, it's great to be here. To your question, Democrats took the Senate in 2019. It's the first time both houses were controlled by Democrats for a sustained period in quite some time. We started by focusing on very substantial changes to the rent laws that allowed to stabilize our communities. We had lost 300,000 units of affordable housing through deregulation of rent stabilized housing over many years. We eliminated all the deregulation provisions. We eliminated most of the loopholes in those laws. Honestly, I thought 2020 would be a great year to look forward. And of course, we spent a couple of years addressing the massive impacts of COVID. We did a $4 billion rental assistance program. We did an eviction moratorium. The last couple of years, we have been really trying to figure out how to address the housing crisis in a big way. And there were three elements, and most people who advocate on housing are for one of the following things, but we really need to do all of them. One is we do need to continue to ensure that we are subsidizing tenants and providing tenant protections, strengthening the laws. So in the last couple of years, we adopted good cause eviction. We have continued to strengthen the laws that allow tenants and homeowners to stay in their homes. And that's true in New York City, and it's true around the rest of the state. The second thing is to make sure we're putting adequate money into preserving what we've got. It's great to be on the panel with NYCHA. We have enormous needs in public housing. We have also enormous needs in other kinds of housing, like some of the Mitchell-Lama developments that need new capital subsidies, Section 8 housing. We have a lot of work to do to provide the resources necessary to maintain and improve the quality of that housing. The third is we need to increase production by quite a lot. There are two parts of that. Number one is we can do a lot more capital for that, and we have, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing is to ensure that communities are permitting housing to get built. And we have the housing crisis in New York is a metropolitan area housing crisis. People don't permit housing to be built practically at all on Long Island. They produce housing at about 20% of the national rate in Nassau and Suffolk counties. What that means, so you can't build multifamily, you can't build rental, you can't build affordable. What that means is the metropolitan area, if people are looking to live here, they have to find a home in New York. So we have to address that. That's on the state legislature to address that, I think, and to work with local governments. In terms of capital, we have been investing enormous amounts of money in social housing, in building housing that'll be affordable to people, that'll be permanently affordable. We've changed some of these tax subsidy programs so their affordability is permanent and doesn't expire. But just last year, the budget the state passed last year includes $2 billion of new money to support housing, and $1 billion of that is earmarked just for New York City. And that is about half new construction and half preservation. And it is intended to provide new homeownership opportunities. It's provided, and also new rental opportunities, and at a very wide range of incomes. So obviously that has to be deployed now. The city of New York and the state of New York, it takes a couple of years from the time you put money on the table to actually see, groundbreakings and ultimately construction completed. But we are really addressing it. There's been a lot of bad news out of Washington, but the federal government has been pretty good on one thing that's relevant to housing, which is maintaining some of the tax credits that subsidize housing production, affordable housing production in the city. Those are actually somewhat better. So we have a lot of work to do, but we are really trying to address it. And again, a lot of the housing that's going to get built, I think, is fair. There are specific social housing programs that people are talking about, but we are intending to build, and we are building housing that is permanently affordable at all levels, and we'll continue to do that.
So Aita, you've heard over the years on public housing land, parking lots, open space, a lot of conversations about whether that's the best use for public housing land, and this conversation continues to come up. So what do public housing residents say when we hear, they want to, even affordable housing, senior building, or leaving it as open space? What is the conversation around in public housing? And compared to what we've heard in the Bloomberg years, which was they were going to do market rate development, what are we hearing from public housing residents? What are their thoughts on this stuff?
I think that the approach, what happens and the feeling is, okay, so you're going to build this luxury, and we will be aliens in our own community because culturally, whatever we do, it's going to be like taboo because we're being bothered, and I'm not paying this kind of rent, or I've paid this much for this apartment. But if you talk about real affordable, where people can actually, let's say seniors moved into a senior building that's going to give them an adequate apartment that's decent, is a little bit different, right? Then you're going to build a 60-story high building, which is what they tried to do in Smith, 2 of them, and cut all our sun, all our views, and then we were going to be like, and the residents were like, no, take our parks where our children play. And that was the biggest fight that we had, right? Smith has...
And a successful one.
Yes, as somebody in NYCHA said, we lost badly, Ms. Torres. And that was okay, because I was threatening to go to war again with NYCHA. That's almost every day on my part. But anyway, but the issue is that the residents in public housing have a right? They have a right to have a bench, have a tree, breathe some clean air, and so it's like, if you live in public housing, no, you don't need to live like you can't live like that, right? You shouldn't live like that. It's not your right, but we do have rights. And I will say, I'll speak for Smith, but I know the other developments, especially in the Lower East Side, because we have the oldest stock, right, of all NYCHA, is that the original residents in all this public housing were war veterans. They fought for this country. They fought for the rights of everybody who's sitting in this room, including me, right? And so their children are now living there, and a lot of them have also gone to war for this country. And we haven't lived, we don't live in public housing for free. We don't live in, we've paid our dues. We're responsible citizens. We've contributed to this society. I can tell you from Smith, like really famous people have come out of Smith. I was like, okay, with responsible jobs, people I grew up with, respected. And so we are a product of a community that has sustained this whole community, this whole country, and yet we're treated like second-class citizens. People think they can come into our communities because it is public housing and do whatever they want to do, and not respect the fact that we pay rent. Some of us pay more rent than people who live in Mitchell-Lamas or own a house, right? And so people have to respect us as human beings and understand, if you really want to do something, then you need to come to the table and really talk to us. Not say, oh, we're going to give you a refrigerator or we're going to give you a new stove, when what we really need is structural things done, like fix our water pipes, which I'm getting done now anyway. Our gas pipes, and thank you, because we could have been, what happened in Mitchell could have happened in Smith because our pipes were that bad, right? And so people have
Explain
to,
Mitchell. I'm not sure everyone knows about the building in the Bronx.
Mitchell Houses is a development in the Bronx. It's almost as old. No, it's a little bit younger. The residents were complaining about the smell of gas, and by the grace of God, no one got killed. Nobody could believe it because the chimney and the side of the just totally collapsed in the middle, and it landed on a grass kind of area, and no one was hurt. It was all over the news. I was actually in Florida, and my phone was blowing up. People like, what are we going to do? Being supportive of the other co-chair. Do we need to go there? What do we need to support the families there? What needs to happen and ensure that? But we're going to see that. We're going to see that because there have been developments where actually the repairs that have been done with duct tape. I'm not.
Yeah. So I mean, all the outrage on that is, moving forward, it sounds like what you're saying is obviously what Bloomberg proposed was unacceptable. But the idea, if we were to get truly a senior building, let's say on an open space, there's a conversation to have with the Mamdani administration. If we see real permanent affordable housing, that might be an opportunity.
It might. It might. It might. But just people have to be real clear. Like, where do you want to do this, and how far do you want to go, and how are you going to respect? Are the people who actually live, like for instance in Smith, actually are going to be allowed to go into maybe a smaller apartment, that suits them? Like if you have if you have a couple that's elderly, they might say, we want to downsize, we want an apartment where we're comfortable with ADA, because a lot of, as we get older, we need wheelchairs and things like that. But it's about having a serious conversation. And it's interesting because the 964 is very clear. It says we're supposed to be included from conception. From conception. And we're not. And that's a big fight that we have in CCOP all the time when we meet with all the people in the Ivory Tower in NYCHA, which is, this is supposed to be a partnership. So why are you showing me this when you already have it in place? You should have asked us first what we wanted to see before you even developed a plan.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point. And by the way, people do have questions. Julia's collecting questions on the note cards. If anyone has them, please raise your hand. She can bring them. She can pick them up from you. But so just sort of explaining to people, the federal law requires a real engagement of residents at the beginning. And if you engage residents from the beginning, there's an opportunity to come with a better outcome. And I think that's exactly what you're asking NYCHA to do. And in some ways, that's what NYCHA's woefully failed doing. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the time.
Right.
They come with plans, they make cuts, and then they use the rules and the laws to say, oh, well, we can't do this, we can't do that because of procurement.
Right.
That's my biggest fight with NYCHA, right? Yep. So the procurement law is you're supposed to find the cheapest, right? Paying when they do a contract, because they're required to do 3 bids. However, there's this little writing that says, if let's say there's a project that costs $100,000, right? And it's going to be $100,000. Could be a little bit less. And somebody comes in with a bid of $35,000. Why are you giving them that contract when if you do the homework, which is this is not doable, you go to the next bidder, right, who might have come in at $75,000 or $90,000, and that might be doable, right? But they don't do that. They go, and you know what the irony of all of this is? Guess what? They give it to the $35,000 builder, and they end up spending $100,000. Right?
So Jody, can we talk a little bit about low-income co-ops for a second? So I know Cooper Square, mostly there's a lot of organizing going on. It's tenant services, tenant organizing in buildings. But there's an ownership piece that Cooper Square focuses on as well, and kind of talk to people about the model, what's successful about it, what's not, and why is TOPA in Albany and COPA in the city, why is that something that you've been advocating for, and if you see that's the future of affordable housing?
I think it's because of everything that you just said. People have to have a stake in what's going on in their homes. People have to feel like they have ownership, they have a voice, and that's the way to move forward. You know, I met one of the tenants who lives in one of the affordable co-ops at Cooper. She went with me to a retreat. What a neat person. I mean, you know, she had come from a shelter about 40 years ago and moved into this low-income housing co-op, and then she was given opportunities to develop her leadership, sent to trainings to learn how to work together. I mean, it's not like idealistic, like where everybody's gets along perfect and everything's hearts and rainbows. There's problems, and people have to learn how to work together to overcome them. But isn't that still better than a landlord harassing you all the time? So I've been inspired to meet the people who live and make their lives in the MHA, the Mutual Housing Association. That's not very specific. I don't know if you want specifics, but.
It sounds like you believe that it's a model that allows people to build community, find stabilization, and you think expanding that is more opportunities. We're, you know, obviously you're in a city where we're a 70% renter city, the stakes in home ownership it sounds like it's a really critical piece.
Yeah, and the fact that you cannot eventually sell out, get rich, and then the homes are no longer affordable, it's a critical piece.
Thanks. So we have a couple of questions here, so I'm going to go through them. And Senator Kavanaugh, thank you for staying here longer than you probably expected.
There are 3 other places I'm supposed to be, but I'm happy to be with you.
We'll let you go in 1 minute, okay? Okay. So a couple of questions on the charter proposals. Do you want to take them, or do you want to hold on and not take them? I'm happy to go through them first, and then the first one is on the alienation of parkland for an upstate ski resort. Personally, I'm not a big fan of alienation of parkland. I don't like giving away parkland, even though we're getting some other parkland. We're taking public property and using it for a ski resort, which is mostly private use, even though it's a publicly owned or operated ski resort. So generally, I'm opposed to that one. I don't know.
So the first was an amendment to the state constitution. I actually have already voted for it. I will say we are not permitted, at least by our Senate rules, to basically advocate for you to vote one way or the other on a proposal in our government capacity. So
this is a campaign event,
right? I see. Okay, gotcha. But basically, this is about the Mount Van Hovenberg ski area. It is a public ski place, and this is about the forever wild provisions of the state constitution, which keep the Adirondacks. Which, if you've never been there, you should. It's amazing. It's the largest contiguous parkland in the 48 states other than Alaska and Hawaii, other than Alaska really. But basically they will take some parkland and expand the ability for people to do cross-country, mostly cross-country skiing, and then replace the parkland with wilderness that's significantly larger, and that will continue to be protected. So I actually, although I share concern about alienation in lots of contexts, I think this one's okay.
So 2 through 4 is basically in the same grouping of issues. It's around how do we move affordable housing projects forward. I would say 2 and 4 are very different than 3. I think 3 basically creates, like right now, if there's a land review process, 3 allows, if the mayor moves something forward to a city planning commission and a vote, the city council votes no, the current process allows them, or votes on something, the mayor can veto it, and then the council can override it. They can disagree. The proposal here is not to allow an override of a veto, create a 3-person commission, basically, with the mayor, someone from the city council, and someone from the borough president's office. I think 3 takes a little power away from the city council. So that's the one I have the most concerns about. 2 and 4 are about creating more opportunities for affordability. I'm generally, I support affordability. I know there's what's called the top 12 districts, which is underperforming development of affordable housing. Those neighborhoods would be in a difficult place. I say some of my colleagues, not in our neighborhood, because we won't be in the top 12, are going to experience it. And some of the neighborhoods, maybe outer Queens, close to Long Island, that Senator Kavanaugh talks about, I believe we need to produce more affordable housing. So those are ones that I think make a lot more sense than the third one. I don't know if you want to comment on those or stay away from it.
Yeah, no, honestly, I will be casting a vote on these things in a few weeks. I am generally favorably disposed to reducing obstacles to building affordable housing.
Right.
I know that some of our council colleagues have big concerns about the specific role of the council in this, and I haven't. I honestly have not sorted out where I am on that particular one.
And then the 5, which is like creating a centralized city map. I think everyone and I've ever met has said they like this.
It's a good yes. That's an easy yes.
And I actually think I end up, I was on the fence about the 6th one, which is around moving the city elections from an odd year to an even year. And I think I've kind of landed in a position where I voted for moving every election to an even year outside of New York City. So it's hard for me to argue we should do the same in New York City. I think it's more complicated because we have ranked choice races and non-ranked choice races, but voters are smart enough to be able to figure that out. So I think on the 6th one, I'm going to be in favor.
I also think we should have ranked choice in state elections, and I've actually used to have legislation to do that. I think one of the problems we have now is voter fatigue. I think a lot of maybe you all are more motivated and you don't mind having, maybe twice a year people trying to get you to sign a petition or vote or pay to start getting the mail. I think that when we originally created this structure, elections lasted a few weeks. Now they last like a year. And I think this phenomenon where there's an election this year, and as that one's wrapping up, the next candidates are ready to come out of the gate. I do think we'd be better off if on even years we had elections, in odd years we governed. And I did favor this in other localities around the state. And I think it's a worthy proposal.
Yeah. So those are the 6 that we went through. Next, NYCHA. So there's a question around section. I know you have to go, so we don't have to keep you. Yeah.
With apologies, there were 3 other.
I caught you off target. I just threw you up here. So
no, this is great. I was supposed to give brief greetings. So greetings to all of you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Sorry to do that.
No, it's good.
So section 8 to section 9, like section 9 to section 8. What are the current discussions? Kind of how do people more engage? This is a question about like how do we educate people about what the risks and opportunities are for that, and how can tenants be more involved in that conversation?
Okay, so right now, Section 8, when we have a DCOP, we have a monthly meeting with all the TA presidents. So we had presidents who did go to RAD, who are in Section 8, actually crying, saying we want to go back to.
So explain RAD back. Explain it to people.
It's the resident demonstration program, right? And what it is Section 8. It's a voucher. And it's controlled and run actually not by NYCHA, but by a private developer. Unfortunately, all the developers that NYCHA has gotten so far have been horrible. And I had a conversation with a TA president who is in a senior building, and I said, if you go to Section 8, you lose being senior building. And every time one of your seniors, like we die faster, that apartment becomes market value rate. And he was like, no. And I said, okay. He said, oh, and then he said to me, was it Friday or whatever? Oh, you were so right. Yeah, but and the residents, like if they don't pay their rent, like with NYCHA, right? Because especially if you live on a fixed income, if you don't get your Social Security or your pensions all at the same time. So if you live in these buildings, you would have to pay your rent ahead of time because they expect you to pay your rent on the 1st, no later than the 5th, sometimes. If not, you could get evicted. And that happens to a lot of the seniors. And so the rate of the controller, Brett Land, we made him do an audit, and he thought we were like, why are you wasting my staff time and money? No, we were right. The highest eviction rate is in Section 8, citywide, right? Section 9, and that's the difference between Section 9, which is NYCHA, as you know it, but it is Section 9. There's a process for the resident. There's loopholes that management has to go through before they evict you. And also, to a certain extent, NYCHA really has a certain component where they will assist you, and if you're behind your rent, to assist you to pay your rent on time. We have to pay rent. It's not about we're not going to pay rent. We have to pay rent, right? But people don't know. COVID was one of the biggest tragedies that we had, because people were like, do I pay my rent or bury my loved one? Not only that, for people who have families, now they had their kids, there was no school, so now you're feeding these kids 3 meals, 7 days a week, and people were like, I feed my kids or I pay my rent. I want to personally thank Harvey. I want to thank Brian and Grace Lee, my assemblywoman, because they went to bat for us in Albany so that we can apply for the ERAP, because the former governor, not the present one, decided that we weren't entitled to the ERAP funds. And our application...
At the rental assistance.
At the rental assistance program. We were like... They literally threw our applications in the garbage can, literally. And people were like, but we're taxpayers, we have a right. And we did a trip to Washington, D.C., where we learned that the law for the rental assistance was for everyone. It didn't matter if you lived in Section 8, Section 9, Timbuktu, you were entitled, you had to present your application. And so I want to personally thank these three, because they took the battle on for not only for their districts and their constituents, but for all of NYCHA. And we went as residents. We took 10 buses and we pushed back on the governor, and she did give it to us. But it was through their leadership supporting us that we were able to get it. But it took us over a year to be able to get that funds. And some people are now seeing the payments from the ERAP. That's how crazy it was, right?
So I know I want to get one more question to Jody, and then I know we got to wrap up. But Jody, the question is, how difficult is it to get results on issues that you're fighting for, and how do you win on those issues?
Oh, yay, nice question. So we don't win everything, but we win a lot. And I'm not trying to embarrass Ann, but she has been involved for a long time in our Stand for Tenant Safety campaign that got 12 bills passed. Now we have a Office of the Tenant Advocate. We have tenant protection plans for people, that the landlord has to post. We have lots of lead bills that have passed. Recently, landlords were supposed to do an inspection of all apartments in New York City by August 9th. Maybe some of them in your buildings have not followed through, but they should. There's so many things that tenants have won. And then we referenced earlier the big 2019 laws. There's so many things that tenants can win if we work together. And it doesn't take as much time as you think. And you're building community at the same time. So do not lose the faith. Tenants win all the time.
Yep. United we stand, divided we...
That's a good message to lean on. I'll lean on my writing the 12 bills for the Stand for Tenant Safety package. I'll take the value in that too. Thank you very much. The last question, and I'll answer this. Why has it been so long since the last Mitchell-Lama development was built? And I would argue that government has failed us on a middle-income housing. We have amazing Mitchell-Lama developments, and we have not prioritized building more middle-income housing in this city. We have ignored the needs from middle-income New Yorkers. And the last year, we put $200 million in the state budget for new Mitchell-Lamas. This year, we put another $80 million in the state budget. And we need to get the city to actually use those dollars to create an opportunity to build that middle-income housing, because that's what we need. And I think I'm saying this because this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is what I'm fighting for. I can't say I'm going to be successful in 2026, but I can just say I'm going to be successful for fighting for this in 2026, and we'll continue to fight until we get it done. I want to thank this panelists, amazing women. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. We're going to bring up our next panel. I think they're all here, right? Yeah, go ahead, Jody.
It's turned off. Please join us, join our campaigns, and take part of the tenant movement.
Yeah. I think I see Wynn's here, Lila's here, Kai's here. Can you guys just come up and settle in? People will need a minute to use the bathroom that's in the back. And since we have a minute while we're doing that, I'm going to bring up one of my colleagues I see her in the back, so I'm going to bring her up so she can welcome people. I want to bring up Councilmember Alexa Aviles to introduce herself. I'd say I've known Alexa before her or I got into office. I was fighting for justice and equity, and she was giving us money. She knows how important his foundations were, and knew how important the movement work was, and. I'm proud to have helped her get elected to the city council back in 2021, and I'm like looking forward to being a colleague for her later this year. So this is Councilmember Alexa Aviles.
Yes, hello. Good evening, everyone. So glad to be here, and always. I am very excited to have Harvey as a colleague. It was definitely a no-brainer when he was like, I want to come to city council. We're like, bet, we're down. We know we have a fighter here. And so excited. I guess, I'm looking forward to the panel and definitely I was the former chair of public housing at council, and now I'm the chair of immigration. Just coming from Foley Square, where many of you probably know there was a pretty awful ICE raid on Canal Street yesterday. And we are expecting the federal government to escalate. And so I just want to tell you all to please do everything you can to both know your rights, to share the rights with your neighbors, right? The right not to say anything, the right not to consent to searches, the right to, oh my gosh, how could I forget this? I just said it 100 times. Do not sign anything. If you are taken into custody, you do not need to sign anything. You can ask to speak to a lawyer. And those are so very important. Do not open your door. Just do not open it. In your home is where you have your greatest amount of rights as an individual. And so, yes, thank you so much. I got into my immigration talk. But please organize with your neighbors, build community defense, because we know neighbors are getting scareder and scareder for immigration, and we need to make sure that they're okay. Buddy systems, checking on each other, and just being the best neighbors that New Yorkers are already. Just lean into what we do on a daily basis. So thank you so much. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to our next panel. I want to thank our panelists for being here. And maybe I'll just start out with a question to you all, and then we can dig right in if that works. And so we live in a city that we're experiencing a mental health crisis. I think we walk around, we see it on the streets. How are social services being integrated into public safety strategies? Where are the biggest gaps? What are the, where are places we need to be showing up more? And, I'll start with Lila Mejia, if that's okay. It's okay? So Lila Mejia is a, first offender and a Lower East Sider. Has worn a lot of hats in our neighborhood, and really, coming at it from a clubhouse model, and people don't know what clubhouses are. I'm sure Lila can talk to you more about it.
So for those that don't know what a clubhouse is, it started from Fountain House about many years ago, and it's a space for people who have serious mental health illness. That can be bipolar, that can be anxiety. They they build this program called Clubhouses, and it's international. There's over 300 worldwide. Recently, this past January, the Lower East Side opened up one at 48 Henry Street through NYCHA, New York Disaster Interfaith Services. The only other clubhouse besides the one here, which is called Elements House, is on 42nd Street, all the way over on the west side. To answer your question, I think what's going on is that there's a lot of talk about mental health, but there's no action behind it. What's happening is that we are saying, hey, we need help, hey, we need support. We're seeing more people on the street, but we're not having enough resources to support that. People are calling the cops, and that is the worst thing to do because cops are not equipped to handle people in that manner, right? And so then what happens is that we're dealing with incarceration rates, we're dealing with hospitalizations. I never said everyone on the street had a mental health problem. But to be clear, 1 in 5 suffer from mental health issues. And with everything going on in this country, I think I have mental health issues, if we're being really clear. So I just think that we need to have more support services in either the clubhouse model or people who are trained to deal with people with SMI, as we call it, and have a long-term support system, right? It's not just, okay, I come, I deal with you, and then I leave you. No, what's the backup report? Where's the housing? Where's the hospitalization? Where is the aftercare? Who's doing a home checkup? We don't do that. And so I think that's a serious gap that we're having when we're talking about mental health issues and what's currently going on.
Thank you. So Wynn's had a lot of experience in government and in nonprofits really leading these efforts. And maybe explain what a settlement house is, kind of what's its role in community, how does it really on the forefront of dealing with the mental health crisis, and what are those gaps that you're seeing from that perspective that government and people in the community don't know about, and how could they be more engaged?
Totally. Well, thank you so much, Assembly Member, and to be on this wonderful panel. So in my day job, I'm here in my personal capacity, but in my day job, I work as a director of external affairs for a local settlement house called Goddard Riverside, which has a lot of sites around Manhattan and Queens. And to your question around the settlement house model, so the settlement house model, there are many organizations, like multi-service social services organizations across the city that actually are settlement houses as well. It's lesser known, but it's a model that's about something like 100, 200 years old, and it comes from the idea of we need to think about social services as the community's living room. So there's no wrong door, no matter where you're going. So for instance, Lila just talked about the amazing clubhouse model. Goddard also has a small clubhouse amongst our many services, but we also do early child care, higher education pathways work. We do affordable housing, senior housing, as well as supportive housing, which is an important part of the mental health space. We work on food. We work on older adults. We basically work through on services throughout your life course. And when we're connecting it to mental health, to the conversations around mental health, I think quite often the thing that we are confronted with as a society is often someone's worst moment, or that they are living within one of their scariest, most vulnerable chapters. But some of and this gets really into the clinical, more technical spaces around behavioral health, but mental health is a journey. Many of us know this, but once we're getting into things where someone is in crisis, is experiencing their first episode of crisis, often the stressors are maybe they did not have access to housing, to a job, to something to the types of basic supports that we all need and deserve to make choices about our lives, to pursue our own goals, and to live the best lives that make us happy and feel supported in our communities. And that's part of what settlement houses are about. So what I would say is often missing here is that kind of wraparound support, not just in the moments where someone is experiencing crisis and really needs those supports, but before they may have experienced psychiatric distress while there, because quite often we can live with psychiatric disorders with the types of supports, but both clinical as well as social. And that's part of where the settlement house model is. To your original question, I just want to mention that I don't, in my experience in other spaces around public health policy, New York City, I think the closest overlaps between mental health and public safety policies that I've seen in the last few years is more of the Be Heard model. And I don't want to take too much time from my colleague, but maybe later on we can delve a little bit more into that.
Yeah, I think we should talk about Be Heard for sure, because I think it's a really important piece of this conversation. But Kai, can I just can we talk about like mental health and people getting involved in criminal legal system, mental health, and like how do we help people prevent bad things from happening to good people, and how do we keep them on a path forward? Like, what are we missing? What are the things that aren't happening in New York that need to happen?
Well, that's a very good question, right? So let me.
Oh, I didn't introduce you. I'm sorry. You know, guy's got a founder of Graphics. It's a gang reentry program. Deals with I call it Collaborative for Better Urban Health, and is really involved in kind of dealing with the mental health crisis we're seeing in New York. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So let me unpack that a little bit briefly before I answer the question. So as you guys know, if you read the profile, I'm Kai Smith. I serve in two capacities. I am the founding executive director of a program of a 501c3 called Graphics. It's spelled GRAAFICS. The acronym is Gang Diversion, Reentry, and Absent Fathers Intervention Clinical Services. And so a little bit of a backstory. I'm one of the formerly incarcerated. I served 10 years of prison in New York, 5 years of prison in Virginia, and 2 years in South Carolina. In prison is where I wrote Graphics, right? I had gotten into a knife fight in the prison yard and gotten stabbed up and was stabbing someone else and went to solitary confinement for 5 years. And in the 4.5 years, and in the 4.5 years that I was in solitary confinement, I had read all of the books on the prison cart that was coming through, like Shawshank Redemption, and it got to this last book. And there was a book on the cart by a gentleman named, I believe his name is Les Brown. It was a self-help book. And I was avoiding reading the book because who really wants to change when they're in prison, right? You get the things, but when you're in there, nobody really wants to do it. You want to do what you want to do until you don't want to do it anymore. So I had read everything, and I finally read that book. And when I read that book, there was a worksheet at the back, and one of the chapters had talked about ex-offenders in reentry, and one of the questions was, if you could design an effective reentry program, what would it look like? It took me 2 years to answer that one question. And so when I was released from prison in Virginia, that was the last place that I served time. When I was released from prison in Virginia, I left prison with a duffel bag full of notepads with all of my notes around that one question. And when I came home 23 years ago, I enrolled at Metropolitan College in New York, and that college taught me how to take everything that I had written and turned it into the program that I have today. So so I took, and then the work with Graphics was a microcosm of my life, because I took everything that I had gone through in life and everything that I had seen in prison and everything that I've seen in society. I was one of the, I don't want to say original, but back in the 80s, I was a person that used to go to the Midwest and buy bags full of guns at the flea markets and then bring them back into the city, selling drugs and all the things, right, that contributed to the decay of New York City in the 80s and the 90s. I contributed to it. So I took all of that and put it into the design of this program because I wanted to do something that looked like healing the damage that I had done, right, and the damage that my family had done, right? And so I took anger management, anger replacement therapy, gang diversion. I curriculumized it. I wrote a textbook and a workbook, and I put it in New York City public schools as a 2-credit course. I did that for 17 years, and the data that we were able to extract from New York City public schools around the question, why are black and brown children addicted to shooting other black and brown children, right? Like taking the bullhorn and occupying the street corner, the kid's already dead. What are you standing on the street corner with the bullhorn for? That's not going to bring the kid back. So I wanted to get behind the layers of that. And the data from that work pointed me in the mental health space. And so I created a program, an actual company called Collaborative for Better Urban Health. And that's where we do case management, care management. We do direct referrals to mental health professionals that I have hired. And we just recently signed a contract with Northwell Health to provide that service, right? So now your question, Harvey, is this, or to answer to that question is this, right? It's trauma, right? So mental health has become a buzzword, right? And I almost want to create a t-shirt that says, unhustle kids, because anytime someone wants to pull at your heartstrings, or they want to get you to reach in your pocket, or one party wants to point the finger at the other party, it's they're doing stuff with children. Do you want your children to, and the children, and do you want your children? And that's where the heartstrings are, right? And so anytime someone talks about mental health and the mental health space, what I want to share with you guys is this, and I'm not a therapist, right? I'm not a therapist, but I've built phenomenal mental health programs for other individuals. I have an MBA and 4 other degrees, but I'm phenomenal at hiring people that are not afraid to get their hands dirty in the mental health space, right? Now, people are hurting and people are tired. And that's the reason why this guy is in Washington and everybody hates Zoran. Because they spoke to people in a language that they understand. What most people don't understand is when we get our education, we talk over people's heads. People are hurting and people are tired. So what everyone is missing is the fact that that mental health condition was born somewhere. When I say born somewhere, it derived from something. Where is what planted the seed to the condition that we see on the subway, to the condition that we see the person walking around urinating and defecating on themselves? And where was it, at what point was that thing ignored and allowed that to get to this extreme? And where we should look at this thing that everyone seems to ignore called complex trauma. Complex trauma is the things that children digest psychologically when they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, that we don't really understand. It sticks with them and it shows up 10 years later. And when it's because no one is addressing it at that age, at that stage, it's gone unfested. What we don't understand is children are receiving, with their fragile minds, they're receiving hundreds of different messages every day. Here is a baby that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Mommy and daddy is not together. That's a message. Why does mommy hate daddy? That's a message. Why is daddy saying something different when I'm with him and mommy's not there? That's a message. The TV is giving me a message. The mobile device is giving me a message. The music that I'm listening to is they can't process all of that. So it comes down to processing what's easy, and what's easy likely is the wrong thing to do. So we're not catching it at a stage where we're supposed to catch it. And now that we're at this stage, and when everyone steps to the podium and says complex trauma, oh, here come the state funding and people coming out of their pocket, and it's always going to the adults. I have yet to see a person say, we're going to take this $200 million and dedicate it to pre-K, first graders and second graders with the mental health that they may be going through 10 years from now.
Thank you. I also want to remind people if they do have questions for this panel, Julia in the back has got additional cards. You can hand them out. If you have cards already filled out, please give them to her so she can collect them for us. So it's an interesting conversation about complex trauma, but then people live day to day and they're like on the street and they're like, well, I don't want to see this person shooting up on my doorstep. crime is going down, but people are like, I don't feel safer in this city. So how do we deal with the issues of complex trauma, but how do we also deal with the real things that people are experiencing day to day in New York of feelings unsafe or unsecure, even in a city where we see crime being reduced and we see, lots of things getting better, but people don't feel it. So how do we impact that? Maybe, Wynn, I don't know if you want to go or I want to make sure, yeah. Go ahead, Wynn.
Thanks so much. I think the first things that I think about is how we culture ourselves around both the experiences of mental health, behavioral health, like the complex trauma, like our learnings about those, and like what do we define as public safety as like the whole, but towards the resources that are available, we should also be educating about what is supportive, yes, what is supportive housing? Yes, what is a clubhouse? But also things like homeless outreach there are services around the city that are able to provide that, and we're quite often folks who know about how to call to see if there can be a dispatch for a homeless outreach team. You may not know what types of things those outreach teams can do when you call 311, and what is the actual process that a team may be doing. Are homeless outreach teams able to take someone to a hospital? Do they have the ability to connect someone to housing? How long does it take to build up trust and support between someone who may be in serious crisis? And I think those things, they may not solve the feelings of, do I feel safe when I see someone who is experiencing a tough time on the subway, on the streets, who may be in an encampment. But I think our general, I would say one thing in terms of dealing with what our perceptions are of how unsafe the city is, or how much of where a mental health crisis is, starts with our education around what are the roots of crisis, but also how what resources are there available in the city, how do they work, and how can we push for better policy interventions to support people.
And maybe to add to that, Lila, if you can, what are we missing? Why aren't we in a better place in this mental health, public safety conversation? Why are we are the clubhouses working? Is the supportive housing working? Where are those spaces what's the gaps?
So just speaking for the clubhouse model, what we're experiencing, because our contract is for 600 members and currently we only have 100. I think the biggest thing is the taboo aspect of it. When you come from communities of Black and Brown and Asian, you don't speak about these things. And so what we do is we kind of keep it in secret. We don't tell, oh, they're all right, they're just going through it, and we ignore it. And that's our biggest issue, is that we're not acknowledging that maybe there is something going on. Maybe they need support. The second thing is, what does that support look like? It's very hard to navigate if you are going through crisis. If you're under 18 and under, where are those services for kids who are 12, 9, and 10 without committing them? Services are only for 18 and up. So many times I have people who reach out to us saying, hey, my 16-year-old, hey, my 12-year-old, and we really don't know where to direct them to. It's also getting that assessment, and then getting that assessment in the language that you speak. Not everyone speaks English. We have so many other different folks. And so the great thing about our clubhouse is that we are focused on Mandarin, Cantonese, Spanish, and English, because we want to make sure that we're inclusive to everyone and no one feels like they can't come into our space and find that home. Another great thing about clubhouses is that it's not a mandatory program. You could come once every 90 days, but you kind of build it out and you build it to what you want to see. We work with a lot of our community partners partners, goals, who come in and do housing workshops for our residents. They did OSHA, not residents, but we call them members. They're not our clients. And you can't really tell the difference between the staff and the members because we all do things together. We cook together, we clean together, we build the community that they're looking for together.
Yeah, I think that we don't want to criminalize mental health, but why are we not humanizing mental health, right? So humanize mental health means, how do you care? Because when you think about mental health from the lens of a program and you think about it from the lens of policy, there's always in the back of the mind, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. But if you read any of the books from any successful CEO globally, they always focus on the things that they can do and the things that they can't do. They have a team of people not to remind me that I can't do it, but to figure out a way for me to do it because it's going to get the result that I want, right? So this thing called mental health in New York City, right? And so to piggyback on what this sister said, our population is from conception, so from the time that a woman finds out that she's pregnant to the child's 21st birthday, right? And by design, we specifically chose not to go past 21 because the bulk of services in New York City around this space is for people over the age of 18. And so, humanizing mental health, in my eyes, because I deal with it every day, it just looks like people caring for one another. If someone said to the New York City Council, to the State Assembly, if this was your kid, what would you do? If these people standing on 125th Street and Lexington Avenue, between 125th Street between Lexington Avenue and Park Avenue, what they call like Castle Great, like whatever you want to call it, is in that area right there. If everyone sitting on this city council, if one of your relatives was out there, what would be the thing that you would do? That needs to be the thing that needs to be done to those individuals that are out there, right? Like, I travel around the country with this, and I was recently in Washington, D.C., and I'm walking down the street, attending a conference, and I looked over, and on a church, there was a side entrance to the church, and it was a sign that said, homeless, showers and clothing. If you were homeless, you could just go to church, get some shampoo, get a good hot shower, get a decent change of clothes, and then just go on about your life. But there are places that we can go in this city north of 96th Street, and people are defecating and urinating on themselves, and they live like that, right? So yes, we can't criminalize mental health, but why are we not humanizing mental health?
Harvey, would it be okay if I follow up on a quick point that both my colleagues were bringing up? So each of us were talking a little bit about how certain resources are available only at certain age groups. And so that's something where, like for instance, there are certain programs that are available for youth, like youth behavioral health response. I'm forgetting the coordinated behavioral health program on the state level that works from 16 to 30, but that is one approach that stays with usually at that age, a teenager through their college years, helps that through their they go into the workforce, and quite often when you're that young and you are interacting either with a potential first episode of psychosis or anything before that of just you are growing up and you're trying to deal with how you engage in the world. There are programs like that, the school-based mental health clinics that often work with community-based health centers. Those are available, but not at enough schools across the city, and those provide in-school like mental health services and supports. There is a mental health continuum program that the council has been and the mayor's office have been working to. It's about the ask last year was $10 million. It's been $5 million, but it has to be renewed every year, and it's a program that both provides mental health services, but also teaches things like de-escalation, being able to interact with difficult conversations. There are a lot of different models that can be available for mental health services and supports at different ages, but quite often we don't resource them well enough. So that's something else that we need to continue to do, both for putting in the money and also making sure that we have the types of workers who can interact and support everyone at each age that they need these supports for.
Before you go to your next question, let me just say this, right? This is one of the things that I do with my staff, right? It's really interesting how the people who are educated and licensed to deal with mental health challenges at all ages, no one's concerned about their mental health. What does it look like to the person that has the LMSW, the licensed master social worker, or the licensed clinical social worker that shows up at New York City Department of Education school, where I physically was smack dab in the middle of 4 fights yesterday in one high school. I was like, that's more action than I got in the last 40 years, right? But what does it look like? There is a licensed licensed master social worker and a licensed clinical social worker, and the clinical social worker is the highest that you can go in, other than having a doctorate degree in social work. Okay, you have those people. Those people are charged with the responsibility of sitting and absorbing and dissecting everything that everyone else is going through, to go to their home in NYCHA to deal with everything that's going on in NYCHA, everything that's going on in the city. Where is the budget to say, New York City mental health therapists, we love you, Cancun on us. Go get some healing to come back to fix what's going on in this city. We're expecting people to carry loads that they can't carry. ACS mental health therapists have 60 and 70, 80 clients, yet it's only 20 work days in a month. Like the kids say, that math ain't mathin'.
So, how much do you think the mental health crisis we are in is because we are in an affordable housing crisis? And does solving the affordable housing crisis help us solve this mental health crisis that we're experiencing? Does the lack of housing stability really have a huge impact? Maybe I believe it happens. I'm happy for. Kai, do you want to go?
My answer will be quick, right? So for that, so you guys, I guess you guys have already figured out, my take on things is a little different, right? So for me, as far as housing and affordable housing and things like that is concerned, what I would like to see is, I would like to see some kind of policy put in place where when individuals pay their rent on time, it's reflective in their credit score, so they can move towards ownership, which is equivalent to generational wealth. Because when you don't pay your rent on time, you can believe that is going to be reflected on your credit score if you get evicted and things of that nature. So for me, unpacking these, I take a lot of time to really think about what is the root, what's driving it, right? I started off this thing by saying people are tired and people are hurting, right? And so there's nothing like some good old generational wealth to pass down to the people that you love, especially in a time where you're working and your back is hurting and your knees is hurting and people in Washington, D.C. getting ready to put your pension on the stock market. It's just people are tired and they're hurting, and we just need to humanize more things. We just need to be more kind, more patient with each other. We just need to, it's just a lot of healing needs to happen, and it's just not happening. And unfortunately, I'm dealing with the babies, so I see it every day.
Agreed with so much of that. To your point about affordable housing and just housing access overall, I think at a basic level, affordability, if you are unable to maintain housing, if you are unable to achieve getting a job, keeping a job, we're in a really difficult job market right now. Many of the drivers of the behind affordability, my background's in public health, and the way that I think about that is the healthcare system is one of many things that contributes to population health and well-being. Those definitely can can affect and contribute to mental health trauma, mental health crises. To a specific point in housing, so I mentioned that one of the things that that the settlement house I work for does is specialize in supportive housing. And supportive housing, if you don't know, it is essentially a type of housing that, depending on, there are different types of supportive housing, but you can have some basic services that help folks living with serious mental illness, manage to live in, maintain living in their apartments, pursue their housing goals. So something like there can be very basic social work services at higher levels of supportive housing. You can have psychiatric nurses who are regularly on site. You may have access to a physician. There are different types of services. Quite often, it's pretty difficult to the bureaucracy around getting someone into a supportive housing site can be pretty difficult. We are getting more supportive housing available to folks in the city, but it's a process. And also the secondary to some of what my colleague here was talking about supporting our care workers. Those services, it's not just housing management. You also need to actually maintain the clinical and experienced supportive housing service providers, and that space overall has had a real issue with growing the workforce, maintaining the workforce, in part for a variety of reasons, including quite often the trauma that workers experience while trying to take care of other folks. So I think the more we invest in supportive housing, into access to affordable housing overall, the more we see folks being able to access safe, clean, affordable housing, and we're doing better by our city overall.
My colleagues mentioned heavy the housing, so I'm not going to mention housing. I think it's an ecosystem, right? One thing I'm going to add is food, access to food, affordability to food. I live here in the Lower East Side, and we are a food desert. I have 6 kids, affording to feed kids, right? I think also education has to play with that, right? It's so many numerous things that contribute to mental health. It is your environment. It is your village. Do you have a village? Do you have support? What's going on in society, culturally? It is all these things. Yes, affordable housing is one of them. But if you're a parent facing eviction, what support services do you have, right? Because you're not going to tell your friend, hey, I'm getting evicted, right? Because there's this taboo of, oh, you're going to judge me because I don't pay my rent, or you're going to judge me. So where is that network of, hey, it's a safe space. Hey, I need help with my children because I'm about to go crazy because I don't have a break. There's all these factors that mesh into this soup of mental health. And I think that I'm not sure if there's one set reason of, can we fix this? But we have to address all these other things before we can say that. And also your environments, right? We're by the highway, our trees are getting cut. Do we have access to fresh air? Do we have access to parks? Do you get to go outside and ground your feet walking on the earth, right? Like those things are needed. They're part of that soul and living, right? Getting back to nature in your garden. So I think all those aspects are can help. Oh, no, forget that last part. Absolutely.
So I'm going to get to some of these questions if we can. How do you get people to support efforts? What will help those with mental health issues? How will you get the next mayor to assist on the mental health crisis?
Well, I think on that end, one of the most comprehensive policy areas that I think candidates across the spectrum have been discussing is mental health policy. So I think that there is interest. Depends on what kinds of interventions that we want, like that you as a voter would want to support. For me personally, I am excited to see more interest in mobile response teams, in supportive housing, in clubhouses, in looking at quite often police officers are being asked to do more than what they have specialty in, including in mental health and behavioral health responses. So policies that look at making sure, like at increasing the amount of like the agency responsibilities on the city level, focusing on let's put community safety and mental health in a certain
So when I know we're running out of time, but can you do a 1 minute on Be Heard?
Yeah.
And then I think we'll try to get one more question in.
Yeah. So Be Heard is essentially a non-police response around mental health responses. So right now in the current process, the model exists in a few other cities around the country, most well known in Eugene, Oregon, but also in a few other places. It is in New York, when you call 911 and you are reporting an incident that you were trying to say, I would like a mental health responder to come. There's a screening process that determines in the city if it's appropriate to send social workers plus maybe some clinical supports to offer connections to community health care, to do on-site de-escalation, et cetera. It has not been rolled out to citywide. There have been questions around whether more of the calls that Be Heard that are calls related to mental health response. If Be Heard could take on more, could we get more units? So I think that's going to be a big focus of the next administration, and I know that the council over the last few years has been asking a lot of questions around how do we roll out more of this type of response to increase community responses to mental health crises, to see more healthcare workers coming out.
And then we get one last question, and I'm happy to maybe lively to start. So questions more about why don't there's enough mobile outreach, street outreach programs to deal with mental health crisis? Do you feel like we don't have enough of those resources? The person also said there's no focus in public housing, a lot of street outreach in public housing. Kind of what's missing on street outreach?
I mean, as far as street outreach is concerned, I think I agree. That question was for you.
You answer.
Okay, Kai.
I agree. I don't think that it's enough street outreach, but to peel layers back, I personally think that the city of New York has this addiction, and the addiction that the city of New York has is consistently and habitually giving its money to the same organizations. Salvation Army doesn't need any more money with a $300 million endowment, with all of that. There are people on the ground doing the work that needs that funding to continue to do the work.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add? I know we just have 1 minute left.
Yeah, I see the 30 seconds. I just want to add really, really quickly, I don't see enough mental health outreach. I know that there's outreach for homeless, there's outreach for substance abuse, but when it comes to mental health, there's also not funding for it, right? There's no funding. We don't have extra funding to do that, provide that. We don't also have the training to do that. We expect, it's word of mouth for the clubhouses. People come because they were either referred through their hospital, through a friend, or someone heard, or we go outside into the community and we let the community know.
I want to thank the three of you for such a really informative panel. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a real opportunities for us to do this together. While we're taking a minute break, we have bring our next panel up, Shahida Jennifer Paul, and while we're doing that, we'll bring up a good friend, Council Member Chris Marte, to say a few words. People know Chris Marte. He represents southern part of the Lower East Side. He's been a real leader on so many issues around affordability, ensuring low-wage workers get rights and protections. And I want to bring up my friend Chris Marte.
Thank you, Harvey. It's so great to see people here. I know you're wondering what's happening on the debate stage, but Zoran is going to win. So yeah, that's the cheat code shortcut. But it's great to be here, and it's great to have a future partner in Harvey in the City Council, because he's not even a council member yet, and he's hosting these panels and bringing people together to get educated, to spread resources. You're really going to revolutionize the road. I'm really excited for it, and I've been looking for a partner like you to really tackle the issues in Lower Manhattan. And the number one thing that the panel discussed was affordability. And I'm going to go a little bit off script and talk about what's going to be on the ballot on November 4th. We have 3 propositions that are going to make housing much harder to have. It's going to drastically change our community. Ballot proposals 2, 3, and 4 are going to take the oversight powers out of development in New York City. What does that mean? The mayor wants to put these ballot proposals, and they're going to read extremely well. There's going to be affordable housing mentioned in each of these lines, saying that we're going to be able to build them much quicker. But the reality is they're taking the city council's power out of the land use process. Why is that bad, right? Because the process right now starts from the mayor's side when he appoints city planning, and it's only going to stay on the mayor's side if these ballot proposals go through. How does that hurt us? When it comes to the city council side, we're able to evaluate proposals on environmental risk, whether they're truly affordable, whether the developer is a good developer, and we have to keep them accountable, add safeguards. But then we also get a lot because it comes through the council. We get investment in our parks. We get community centers. We built 3 schools in my district just because of land use decisions the councils were able to fight. And so I recommend you to tell your friends, vote no from 2, 3, and 4. It's really going to take away the power of the council, but more importantly, it's going to take away your power, because your power is the one that the council member listens to and fights for throughout these land use decisions. Thank you so much, and Harvey's the man.
Thanks. I want to thank Councilmember Marte for joining us and being here. Now I want to bring our 3 panelists up. They're here someplace. I see. Where are, oh, come on up. Come on. Come on. All right. All right. As they settle in, hi. Yeah, please. Shahida, where are you? Oh, come on, come on. All right. So I know we've been here for a while, but I want to give enough time to this last panel as we can. I want to thank everyone for staying. And I know folks, if you have to go, there's Harvey swag in the back. You can take lit. You can tell people to elections just, less than 2 weeks away. It's really important that oh, here it is. Important to, whatever people decide, most important thing is to get people out to vote. It's critical. I think NYCHA said it at the beginning, the more people who mobilize, the more people we can raise our voice. This is about trying to solve problems collectively, so I want to thank our panelists for being here and taking the time to talk about issues today. So we're going to talk about environmental justice and climate. It's climate change feels like such a big thing for folks. That it's like huge. How do you manage climate change? How do we contextualize it for people? How do we get it to be localized? And how do people feel a personal obligation, responsibility to deal with it in our neighborhood? So maybe and since Shahida, you were the last up, I'll hit you first. Shahida Smith, who's another Lower East Sider, deeply involved in this community, that's been active on a number of fronts, on a government side or a nonprofit side, and talking a lot about environmental justice and how we move forward. So maybe I'll open it with you.
Well, thank you, Harvey. I'm so happy to be here this evening. Again, my name is Shahid Smith. I am a daughter of NYCHA, Baruch Projects, to be exact. And I would say that when it comes to climate crisis and climate justice and environmental racism, it is something that I know well. And I didn't know that I knew about it until I became an adult, because things become normalized. And you're used to garbage in front of your building, you're used to mold in your bathroom. You don't even know it's mold. You just know it's black spots, and you know that your grandmother tried to use bleach to get rid of it, and it doesn't, right? You know that a lot of your friends in school have asthma. That's not hereditary. Asthma is not a hereditary illness, right? So in terms of bringing urgency to climate justice in our community, it's mostly about speaking the language of the people. And I'm not talking about Spanish and Chinese, right? I'm speaking about environmental terms that they can understand, that they experience every day. Why is it so hot in my NYCHA apartment? Because it's called the heat island. It's intentional. Environmental justice communities have been built this way intentionally. People who are low income, people of color, are placed there to live intentionally. Just because we're resilient does not mean we want to live there, okay? Just because we can handle it does not mean it's just for us to have to live through these experiences every day. So what I would say is communicating with folks through storytelling, experiences, to make it real to them. And then adding on, hey, this is what this is. Environmental justice is this. Climate change is this. Particulate matter is this. When you cannot breathe, it's because our area is at least 4% higher than the whole city in the Lower East Side, because we have 3 bridges, a major highway, constant construction, a crumbling infrastructure in this environment, right, where we live, right? When you walk outside your door, there are rats everywhere. And that is not, it doesn't matter if you live in NYCHA or if you live in a condo, you're gonna have to run away from them. Okay? We all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. And so it is the bridge of making sure that we are all aligned in the language and understanding of what is happening and what the health impacts are, because ultimately it's about our health. We are paying rent to die. I don't care if you are on public assistance, which will be going November 1st, snap, okay? Or if you are in the new developed buildings that are 80 stories high, you are still gonna breathe the same particulate matter in the Lower East Side. That is worse than the Upper East Side. And so when we communicate and we speak about what climate crisis is, it largely has to do with how we talk about it and the stories that we share and how we experience it. And so for me, having garbage outside of my building in 549 FDR Drive piled up for 2 days at a time, having rats, having roaches, having mold, all of these things, people don't think of it as environmental justice. They think of it as this is the way it is. This is the way we live. They don't think about the idling buses in front of 50 Columbia, where I live, to be a problem. They don't think about the buses, the trains, the trucks. They don't think about it the same way as we experience it. And so when we think about climate environment, the environment inside your home, the water you're drinking, the water you're bathing in, the lack of ventilation in your building, in your apartment. Why people died during COVID. This is all environmental justice. This is all climate crisis. And until we are able to speak to this in the same language, we will not understand the impact and we will not understand the urgency.
So Paul, who's a climate activist and lobbyist and runs the lead organizer for We Act for Change, a climate activist group. I'll plug my work with We Act 30 years ago with Cecil Corbett Marks when we were young organizers and leaders. We Act's been doing this work for decades, really on the forefront on whether it's dirty buses and diesel. How do you engage people to realize it, personalize it, and engage them to make change?
First, thank you so much for everything you're doing, especially convening this forum. This is truly a renaissance of what it means to run for office, bridging the divide between subject matter experts or people with the lived experience with members of the community to get key information that I hope all of you are taking and absorbing to then share with your neighbors. And to answer the question, I would say it's a little bit multifaceted, but it kind of is rooted in establishing points of unity on shared investment on addressing issues, and also meeting people where they are. Making sure that you are engaging areas where people are naturally congregating, where there's naturally high traffic flows, and then creating a information hub through those facilities where we could congregate in areas like this, like a house of worship, to get key information to people to know about air quality monitoring, or letting them know about water quality testing, or letting them know about what are some key information that they could bring home from Empower for NYCHA or other invaluable resources that you are willing to put your guard down to receive this information because it's an area you're familiar in. Not only houses of worship, community centers, public libraries, where people naturally are going to receive information, and how they could receive invaluable climate information that they could take home and be able to process through a kitchen table conversation. And also realizing that our communities are a quilt, not a blanket, and how we could be able to establish partnerships with organizations that have subject matter expertise through an intersection or an overall dimension of what it means to have diverse dialogues in climate communications. For example, if any of you are members of the Hispanic or Latino community, you might be able to get information through the support of an organization like Green Latinos, who engages in getting information out to members of that community. Or if you're a member of the Asia Pacific Islander community, being able to leverage best practices from the Asia Pacific Islander Network, which knows how to get information to those key demographics, or through the dimensions of houses of worship. There is organizations called the Jewish Climate Action Center, which engages synagogues to be able to become more resilient in climate and be able to get information out. There's also Green Muslims that does the same thing with mosques. There's also the Catholic Climate Covenant for members of the Catholic faith, Eco Buddha for members of the Buddhist faith. But there are so many ways that we could be able to leverage a subject expertise and stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us that have been doing this work for a very long time. You mentioned a very powerful name, is Cecil Corbett Mark, and he is someone that was a visionary of knowing how we could be the educators amongst people that are civically involved in the process of politics, while also being able to, in parallel time, politically empower members of the environmental community. Because it is much more efficient for us to empower someone that gets it, cares about climate, cares about protecting our shared natural resources, and then elevating them to the political forum so that they could be the advocates through the power of the pen of bringing the right policy forward. It's very difficult for you to get someone to already put their hand on the Bible and tell them to start caring about the lived experience of what is happening in terms of the environmental justice movement. But the real good hope that I have about the work that's being done, especially with the work of Assemblyman Epstein, who is going to be a fantastic councilman for District 2 in New York City, is that a lot of eyes are on Manhattan. What Manhattan does, what New York County does, is the reason why it's called New York County. The state of New York will follow. The other 61 counties will follow. This is not only a county with a diverse community, but this is only the county that is home to the headquarters of the United Nations. missions for foreign nations to the United Nations. And so many people that could be able to take this experience and take this information to be able to hold the other 3,142 counties in the United States of America accountable.
Thank you. So, I mean, Jennifer, the Lower East Side Ecology Center, you know, for people who don't know, I've been a big composter for decades, and I speak passionately about it all the time. But how do you educate people, bring people in? How do you talk about it in a way that personalizes this movement, this work, so people, either whether they like it or not, feel like there's a personal responsibility, and how that relates back to climate change?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking about like what Shahida just said about people have lived experiences. People see the garbage on the streets. People see the rats. And composting, a lot of people associate it with something that attracts rats, but it's actually a really important strategy for mitigating rats. When we separate the food waste, which is a meal for rats, and put it in a sealed separate container, you're eliminating the food source. You're decreasing rat populations. You can have a rat czar and pay them so much money, but if you're not getting rid of the meals that are feeding the rats and feeding their populations, it's not gonna go away. So talking about the many, many benefits of something like composting are something that we all, even if you aren't super passionate about the environment and climate change, you can really reap the benefits and you know, they can really improve your everyday life as well. And composting in particular too, for anybody who is involved in like the community composting network here in New York City, it's such an important tool for not just, you know, reducing food waste and creating compost and combating climate change through that, but it's also an important tool for just building people together. You know, it often happens in community gardens, in these spaces that are right around the corner from our homes, where we're gathering outside with our neighbors and on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning, and we're being outdoors in nature, touching grass, touching the soil. And so, yeah, I think it's just such a great opportunity to build community, bring people together, but also to just mitigate these problems that we all live with.
Thank you. I want to ask you, all of you, maybe, you know, when we talk about climate change, how do we integrate arts, artists, teachers, storytelling in part of this movement? How do we use them to help us be a better climate you know, climate adversaries on these issues? And am I wrong? Maybe we shouldn't be using artists and storytelling, but in my mind, I think it's a tool that's available.
So I'll take this real quick because I just recently wrote a song about environmental justice, and I actually performed it at Community Day on FDR Drive. I think that everyone in here knows and has sung many of these songs for social justice. Whatever decade that you were passionate, because you're here for a reason, first and foremost. Culturally, we sing, we paint, we create mechanisms and vehicles and bridges through the arts, because that is the place that we are all comfortable, that we feel joy, and that we are educated. Think about the first song that you learned in your life. Think about the impact that We Are the World had on the world. Right? It brings awareness. I'm a vocalist, I am a dancer, and I am 100% sure that anytime that I sang a song about a social justice issue, that it touched someone's heart and it moved them. We come to church to be moved because the Spirit moves us. The Word moves us. We go to, you know, do you understand where I'm coming from? Art moves us. And if we utilize the arts more in this battle that we're facing around environmental justice and everything else, we will all be better for it, because we see the joy in it, because we are in solidarity around this issue, but we also feel the joy in it because it is a part of our culture. It's a part of our hearts. It's a part of our souls. Music is what? It is the language that everyone speaks, correct? So if we utilize the arts, to push this movement, we would be better for it. Is it cool? Is it whatever the kids are saying? Who knows? I don't think it is. But it doesn't matter because we have to find a way to touch people and to reach people. And in my experience, that is how I was reached. That's how I came into this work. My mother was a Black Panther. My father died teaching people how to read in prison. Through words, through art. And I am an advocate for that all day, every day. And I believe that when people memorize lyrics to a song that has to do with their everyday, they're gonna remember that. They're gonna feel it. It's in their hearts when you utilize the arts. It's in your heart. Because we could do surveys. I've been doing surveys, you've been doing surveys. We could do surveys all day, okay? But if you sing a lyric, if you have a hook, if you have a chorus that is speaking to bringing solidarity to an issue, to me, that is the best way to approach this work because people are going to remember it. You remember the chords. You remember how it made you feel, right? So for me, the arts is one of the best ways to really push this, I don't want to even say crisis, only because it's so negative. It makes it sound so to push this movement, for us to understand why it's important for us to unite. And for me, the arts is the one way that we unite. You cannot deny somebody who can sing. You cannot deny a good drummer. You cannot deny it. When we have rallies, what do they use? We use drums. We use chants. We use call and response. And that is something that is spanned across all cultures. So for me, the arts is the way for us to really push this because people do not want to hear the doomsday all the time. I don't look at the news because it makes me feel bad. But music is going to make me feel good. It's going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to throw that on the floor today. I'm going to compost maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm being extreme in my messaging, but what I'm saying is you're going to hear, when you hear it from a different lens, oftentimes it invokes a different feeling inside of you. And I believe that the arts is one way to do it. I don't know who wrote that, but I read it. Just what? Just what? I want to know now. You understand? It's about the vibration and the frequency. And we have to vibrate on a higher frequency and allow those folks who are low vibrational to stay where they are. And we need to unite on that higher vibration, whatever it is, whether it be spoken word, people who MC, people who play the piano, people as a gospel choir, whatever it is, we need to make sure that we connect in those levels so that we can connect on other levels.
Thank you. I don't know if either of you want to add to that or I can go to the next question. I don't know.
I mean, that was amazing. That was so good, really hard. But I just also want to add that I think another role that like artists, storytellers, just creatives really play is like their ability to like envision something new. And so much about like just like what we're doing isn't working. And I know for myself, I'm not a creative person. I have a hard time imagining something that I haven't already experienced or haven't already seen. That's really difficult for me. But I think that like artists and creative people are really the key to creating like new pathways forward, new solutions, and kind of digging us out of whatever we're in. So I think, yeah.
I just want to ask a quick question to everyone here. Please raise your hand if you know Denzel Washington or Leonardo DiCaprio or Drake or Taylor Swift.
Why you said Taylor Swift? I'm gonna raise my hand though.
Or keep your hand raised if you know who Doreen Harris is or Amanda Lefton. Doreen Harris, my apologies, or Amanda Lefton. Doreen Harris is the president CEO of NYCHA, New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Amanda Lefton is the commissioner of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So that means if you recognize, so that means if Denzel Washington, Leonardo DiCaprio, Taylor Swift, and Drake were to come out here and host a climate forum, some people would be more inclined to attend than the top environmental leaders in the state of New York. And that shows you that we have an opportunity to really draw in people through musical artists or through artists in general. especially the low grassroots artists, the local artists, because they have local followings. It's not like they got Grammys and they got followers from all over the country. They have people that are following them on social media locally, living in the community with them, and they could be powerful assets bringing attention to conventional environmental issues that haven't been getting out. And also just going back to art and paintings, they say a painting is worth 1,000 words. So I think it'll be very much efficient for if we could show drawings and paintings of pollution as opposed to giving people 30-page PDF files to read at the end of the day.
Say it again.
Thank you. So I know we're running out of time, and we have questions from the audience, but so how do you get someone who wants to care, wants to be involved, but don't know how to find their way in? Like they don't know how to get involved, they don't know how to dig in, they don't know how to figure this out. What advice do you give to them to kind of step into this climate space, and how do they step in?
I have two things to say. The first one is like, there's really just something for everybody. I think find the thing that you are good at or that you are passionate about and like kind of dig into that. There are so many environmental issues. There's so many climate and social justice issues. If you try to do it all, you're gonna fail. So really focus on like something within your local community that you are really interested in and like kind of dig into that and don't try to do everything. But if you need a little bit more like kind of direct guidance, I think one very easy, accessible, and impactful way to be a steward in your community is looking at your local street trees. At the Ecology Center, we do a lot of programming around this. Our local street trees provide so many environmental benefits. Street trees are climate resilience. As our city gets hotter and hotter and hotter and asthma rates go up and other issues and health issues are going up, street trees provide so much protection. They filter pollutants out of the air. They provide shade. They cool our temperatures. They absorb rainwater when there's flooding and there's heavy rains. And Parks Department doesn't take care of these street trees like we think they do. They really rely on individuals and community organizations to do that work. And taking care of your local street trees can be literally as simple as picking up the garbage, loosening the soil so air and water can get in, and adding a layer of compost. There's no permits required. There's no permission required. You can walk out your front door and you can just do it. Ecology Center does volunteer events doing this all over the neighborhood and in some other districts too. So you can come out if you want to do it with us. You really do not need us. On our website in the next couple of days, we'll be launching some of our new street tree care resources. This includes a tool lending library in the neighborhood, so you can borrow tools for free from our team to do your own stewardship work. We'll be launching a request form, so you can request tree guards to go into your local street trees in front of your homes. And we also just created a new guide that just walks you through step by step how you can do it. So that's one very easy, very accessible way that you can help our local community through stewarding street trees.
So I work for good old Lower East Side, and we recently did a environmental justice community survey. Many of you may have taken it. It was pretty lengthy, but you got $10, so we try to give back. But I'm saying that because we have to know what the community needs in order for us to build campaigns around it as a community organizer. And I'm not going to assume that it's only flooding, right? Because that's not my place. As a community organizer, you're supposed to find organic leaders who have the issues and they bring them to you so that you can build campaigns around that, right? So that's one thing that good old Lower East Side has been doing around just really finding the missing pieces, right? Where's the knowledge? So for me, I'm creating a EJ 101 digital dictionary because we need to know what we're speaking about. I'm very, very focused on this language piece because we all speak differently when it comes to environmental justice. And until we have that shared language, we can't really advocate around it, right? And so welcoming people into spaces to communicate about that, sharing their stories, their lived experiences around what environmental justice looks like, and giving them the language to speak to it in a way that is not only going to build and empower them, but to build power within our community, so that when it comes to creating policy change or saying what we need, we could speak to these funders in the way that they understand, or these folks who come in who are not from the community and do surveys, right? I'm gonna give you $50, but then I'm gonna leave. No, I'm gonna give you what I could give you, but I need you to understand what it means to be in a space that there's poor air quality, or there's contaminated water, or there's contaminated soil, right? So for me, it's about creating that bridge so that we understand what we're talking about when we speak to environmental racism and environmental justice. We have to speak the same language. So that's where I'm coming from with it. It's about creating that shared language so that we can speak to each other about it and say, oh, damn, that happened to me too. And then you could take it to someone else and say, did you know? Because it's really all about the word of mouth, and it's really about knowledge and spreading the wisdom about it so that we can all get on the same page in how we're going to create solutions, for me.
I would, based upon what I've seen, probably make a recommendation of definitely strengthening our local coalitions for climate discussions, so that we have people that socially, economically, or culturally resonate with the individuals that they're having these conversations about. And then how these coalitions could then become a confederation that could then translate to a micro to macro level of conversation, so that you can have issues impacting us on the lower side of Manhattan to issues that are impacting people in different time zones. It's important that you have people that you connect with to have these conversations with, because then you're going to be more receptive to the information that's being presented to you, and not have anyone coming off like they're providing some sort of ulterior agenda or manipulating your observation of an issue that is very personal to you. And speaking of issues personal to you, it's important that you personalize climate change and the environmental justice movement. Why are you involved? What is your investment? What is your stake in this movement? And then making sure that you leverage that to establish connections with people, but more importantly, to build authenticity with the people that you're talking to. I know all of you are each on your own hero journey in terms of being champions for the environmental justice movement. And it's important that all of you know how your progress can help inspire someone else that may not have the resources that you have. You know, not everyone has a dynamic assemblyman or a dynamic councilman that's able to be an ally in climate policy or remediating historical climate injustices. And you know, just going back to, you know, personal stories, it's really, really important, because everyone has their own story, and it's really important that you leverage that to really build power into why you're involved. In my own personal story, I got invested in environmental justice when a tree fell on my mother when I was 4 months old that would have been picked up by an arborist, but there was no tree ordinance, there was no arborist, and that tree during strong winds fell on my mother, and that was the end of the story. So that story is connecting to, even though it's devastating for my family, it connects to so many people that are experiencing environmental injustices all over the country. So making these connections, these bonds, I'm not saying go out here trauma bonding and environmental justice with people, but it's important that you really resonate with the people that you're talking to and establish that culture of solidarity and shared investment, because each of you could leverage your own respective superpower to really build a collective that could really pick up a stronger movement. And we need to be in this together. You know, we are one community, one ship flying around the sun, going through the Milky Way, and it's really important that we become stewards for our local community, but controlling what we can do. Some of us could be the kings and queens or empresses and emperors, but some of us might be content just being the baron or baroness of the movement.
So I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to get to at least one question before we go. Someone cares about the environment. How, if someone cares about the environment, try to change the indifference of others? How do you impact the indifference of others? And maybe 30 seconds each, because I know we're really at the end.
Could you?
Yeah, so you care deeply about the environment.
but you see other people who are really indifferent to environmental issues. How do you impact their indifference, or can you impact their indifference?
I tell them to pick up the garbage that they've dropped on the floor, then there's a garbage can that's 10 feet away from them.
Thanks.
Legit.
Good.
Legitimately. I know I only have 30 seconds, but it's like we have to call people out, not in a way that's harsh, right? But it's like, hey, you don't see that garbage right there? Can you just, let's just put it in a garbage can. It's not that hard. Like, it really isn't that hard. And it's about meeting people where they are all the time. We have to really acknowledge the fact that everybody isn't as aware as we are.
Right.
And we just have to bring them to the level that we're at so that we can help them learn, and so that they hopefully will change the next time they throw something on the floor.
Good.
I would recommend making sure that environmental justice issues resonate with things that people naturally could connect with, usually their health or their wallet. So if you could show the connection of those issues to their health or to the economic stability, then that's a great way to having that door be open for other conversations in the future.
Great.
And I'll just say rats again.
What?
Rats.
All right, it's rats. Good. All right, so I want to thank this panel. I want to thank them for their time, their effort. I know it's late. I know we didn't get to all the questions, so what we'll do is follow up with answering to the questions we were unable to get to today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Chanel is handing out next week we're doing a shredding event, so if you have paper you want to shred, we're doing that next week, so we remind people that we do that shredding. I want to thank everyone for being here, my team for organizing this, and everyone for joining us. I don't know if there are any water bottles or swag left, but if you didn't get it today, there's more opportunity to that. Again, the last thing is November 4th is just a little more than 10 days away. Early voting starts this weekend. And tell everyone, tell your friends, tell your loved ones, elections matter. People who are in these offices matter. Our future matters. This is about making sure we have a better New York. That's why I'm planning to be the next council member for District 2. I'll plug that so people know, I've endorsed the Democratic nominee for mayor, Zohran Mamdani. I encourage people to vote for him. The public advocate, Jamani Williams, Mark Levine for borough president, for comptroller, Brad Hoylman Siegel for borough president. We have a lot of people in this city who are trying to make this city better. There's a lot of work we need to do, and we can all do it together. Thank you again for being with us, and everyone have a lovely night.
And make more time for environmental justice.